Roman, thank you for being here. Today we will talk about UI and UX. We know at AbbaDox it's very important to allow our users to onboard fast and to understand the system fast. Our users need to enjoy the product, but also understand how to use it. In my sense, any good software should not only be good looking, but also user friendly. Can you walk us a little bit through your UI design process?
Yeah, definitely. There's certainly a lot of benefits to investing in UX and UI, and we have adopted the design thinking approach, which is an iterative design process, and we go through it on each of our projects, where we try to understand our users, the needs of our users, explore different ideas, create wireframes and user flow diagrams, and then we design the high fidelity mockups to test our solutions by leveraging iterative prototypes before our developers begin implementing them. So I wanted to show you an idea of how the process itself works, where it's a cyclical process, but it doesn't have to repeat from one cycle to the next. So it can really go from any cycle to any other cycle. So we go from talking to the user and emphasizing with our users to defining the process, and then potentially back or forward to creating our ideas or prototyping, and then back to any other step. And then we repeat the process as necessary until we feel that the solution accomplishes the need, and then we begin actually developing it.
So is that common for you to go back several steps? What are the triggers of that when you go from several steps and you decide to go back to the empathize?
It really depends on the complexity of the project and the feedback that we're getting from both the stakeholders and the clients. So we go through the process usually just ideally once, but I think it's basically impossible for any complex project to only go through it once. So where we try to do the least number of passes is on the implementation, because it takes the longest to implement, where developers actually have to build the code. So if we make a mistake at the earlier steps, it costs us a lot of time and money to change the implementation. So we try to catch all the issues with the proposal solutions early. We can iterate very quickly on different prototypes and propose different wireframes, different high fidelity mockups, and different prototypes. And then as they start fulfilling the tests, as in the needs of the clients, then we can begin implementing, hopefully just once.
I see. So you go through that design process, but how do you go about understanding each user types? We have many different types of users at AbbaDox, right? So how do you go about making the experience tailored to them?
Yeah, so understanding the users is very important, and we prioritize that step of the process to know who our target audience is and what their needs and expectations are. So we actually began CareFlow by mapping out all the users that will be using our system, and to the extent we even named everybody. So we had Pat the patients, Dr. Phil, who is the referring physician, and etc. And then we mapped out their interaction. Like this diagram actually keeps going and going and going on how the different users interact with the different parts of the system. So this helps us a lot to target the right audience, understand their needs and expectations. And then this type of a map is called the personas. So we want to understand that, or ensure that our software caters to every persona, not just what we think is useful. And when we test, we also test from the perspective of each user type. We began CareFlow and continue to start each feature by first understanding who will be using it, and then mapping out all those user workflows by persona and jobs to be done by those people.
I see. And how often do you go back to the user journey like this? Every time there's a new workflow in place, I'm guessing that you have to figure out how they're going to interact with it.
To a degree, for every project. Now, the further you get into the software itself, the more second nature becomes. So once you intimately understand the different types of users, you don't have to revisit this nearly as frequently. But it's always a very good early process to map this out, and then to go back to those users to make sure that they're getting the tools that they need.
I get it. So how do you make sure the system look familiar for people that have never seen AbbaDox before or never used it?
Yeah, so we designed and built a very comprehensive design system, and we borrowed ideas and components from other tech industry giants, which our users are already familiar with, such as Microsoft, Google, and Atlassian, the builder of Jira. And it is through this design system that we maintain a consistent look and feel across all the sections of our product, to ensure that the components are intuitive and familiar for easy adoption. And then since the initial design, we've also completed an accessibility color audit to ensure that our color combinations are passing web content and accessibility guidelines. So I do want to show some examples. So we've created a fairly large list of the different colors, and each color corresponds to a different section of our software, has different meaning. And then we've created a variety of components and all of the states of those components, so such as buttons, button groups, different switches, inputs, menus, date pickers. And then we combine those types of components into more complex structures, such as our layout card and headers and the bodies of those cards. So this helps our developers create a very consistent presentation, and helps us lay out the data in a much more digestible manner for our users.
So is it fair to to see AbbaDox as being on the forefront as far as UI and UX in the industry?
In the industry, I think that's very true. Although, as far as the tech industry, we're definitely trying to follow the bigger companies, the Microsoft, the Google, Atlassian, and other giants, because they're really paving the way, and they're making it easier for us to make things familiar to the user. So somebody who knows how to use Outlook, they will feel right at home with Careflow. Or if they know how to use Gmail, they'll also feel right at home with Careflow. So you'll see familiar looking types of components. They're not identical looking components, but there's certainly pieces of the puzzle that translate. So when you see a toggle, it looks like a toggle. When you see an expandable element, you don't wonder what it means or how to use it, or you know immediately that a piece of card is going to expand and contract.
So at the end of the day, AbbaDox aims to optimize workflows. That means essentially we aim for the least number of clicks. How do we accomplish this through UI and UX?
Well, that kind of goes back to understanding what our users need and what they're trying to accomplish. And while one of the really important things is every client is different. So we could build a system like Outlook that essentially treats the email reading solution the same for everybody who uses it, right? Now, in that case, email is a solution that is used exactly the same way by many different people. But in our case, the radiology workflows are different from client to client. Now, there are some similarities. Of course, there's going to be patients. Of course, there's going to be appointments. So there are certain things that translate directly. But some things are very unique from different clients. They might have different rooms. They might have different modalities. They might have different number of staff and different stages of the registration process, the billing process, all of that. So while we maintain the overall design uniformity, we've created an extensive a library of configuration tools that allow us to easily customize the system for each client, tailoring our solution to their existing processes while streamlining their workflows. And I can actually show just the screen. Give me 1 second. I'll pull it up. Where we started in the very beginning, some of our original designs we were already thinking for how each user can save a sample of their workflows, which would save their filters, which save their work lists. So it would make it easier for each type of user or each particular person to repeatedly do the task that they were assigned to do. And the system would know, like, the order of columns would be tailored to that person, the order of filters would be tailored to that person, and they could save them. So the system evolved, and there's still some features that remain that we need to bring into the current, but the look and feel went from this black and white original ideas to then adding some color to it while still trying to figure out the black and white portions. Then refining it with more sections, like having our patient summary widget that eventually evolved into this. This would be the latest design with a much more refined patient summary widget, better filter organization, better colors that now pass accessibility standards, and a much more streamlined presentation of data.
Let me circle back on what you were mentioning in terms of accessibility features, right? So what does it mean in terms of the color? You mentioned the color audit. What does it mean exactly?
To give you a simple example, we want to ensure that people who have any or some disability with seeing colors can still read or see all the content on the page, which means making sure things like this gray background is light enough so that the text on top of it is easy enough to read. It means that when there's an icon that that symbolizes something, it is reinforced by something else that also explains what it is. So here we have like a little bit of color. So like every status code is color coded, but just showing the color of the status is not sufficient. You have to say that it's this color means it's the scheduled status. So that if a person who is using the system is even partially colorblind and doesn't know what color that is, or there's a lot of colors that are similar, the colors are there further reinforced by the label next to them. Same thing being here. Like we could have just had a little exclamation point with a red color, which still is better than just having a red color, right? So you could make this text red saying that appointment is a stat appointment, but just having red text. But that really wouldn't be enough. So having an icon helps, and having a text that explains what that icon means in addition to the color is the ultimate goal, where you have multiple factors reinforcing the usability.
Is it safe to assume that it also helps like regular users into going through the UI because there's like higher contrast and then they can pick up information faster as well?
It certainly doesn't hurt. People who have perfect vision could see more color nuances, which in some case might be helpful to have a wider palette. But just by having wider palette doesn't mean that you can remember what every color in that palette means.
All right. I mean, that's perfect, Roman. Thank you so much for like going through how you go about doing designs. How does it look now? What was the process going there? We have this little tradition where we create, once you've been on this little shortcast, then you enter the Hall of Fame of AbbaDox, right? So you get to be on our About Us page. So basically, as you may be familiar with this, we have the ties of every member of the team. You have and they have a personal hero, right? And they all look like their idol, right? So I created one for you. I hope you like it. You ready? And I present to you Roman Federer, winning Roland Garros for the last time before retirement and getting into UI and UX. So you look awesome. It looks like you won. So again, Roman, thank you so much for your time today. It was very instructive. We appreciate all the work you put into the UI, and I'm sure that a lot of our users are very grateful for being able to enjoy the product, know how to use it, and understand it right away. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a really great experience, and honestly, being able to improve people's lives through creating these intuitive user interfaces that truly transform their work and make it easier for them to do their jobs has been a very fulfilling experience.
Yeah, and we all appreciate your hard work making this happen. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. All right, bye bye.